Hey, this is Joe from Census. Today I'm going to give you a quick walkthrough on sending API triggered campaigns in Braze using Census to trigger based off of data that's in your data platform. So in this case, we have a data platform where we've got data on users and we have some trigger properties that we want to include as personalization in the message. We're going to use Census to create the triggers for that campaign with the data that we need to use to personalize in the message that the end user receives. So first, let's take a look at some of our data. I've got a few users here that have an external ID, a first name, last name, and an email. And then what I'm doing in this demo is that I want each of them to get sent a message with a link to a Qualtrics survey, but it's a personalized link that's unique to them. So the first thing we need to do is set up the campaign that we're going to be sending with. So I'll go into Braze and we'll create a campaign. I'm going to choose email for this one because it's easy. Give it that fancy name. And then we'll create our email. And what I really want is to pass in that customized URL. In a real use case, you'd probably do this with a button. I'm just going to put it in a paragraph just so that we can see the URL when I eventually get it as an email. So I'll go over here and choose personalization, and then I'm going to personalize based on API trigger properties. And the API trigger property I'm using is, let's double check this, survey URL. I'm not going to enter a default value for this one. And there we go. So that Braze doesn't get mad at me, I better add a button with an unsubscribe link. Huge call to action button for my unsubscribe. All right, I'll give it a message, or a subject. And we can continue. For the schedule, I'll choose API triggered. Since I'm doing it for testing purposes, I'm going to allow the same recipient to get multiple messages after a delay of 1 minute. For the target, I'm just going to add kind of a nonsense filter here. All of my test users have the first name API test. Just choose a conversion event type. Stay open the email in 3 days, okay. So there's my message. It'll give me the survey URL in the body of the message. And it'll be triggered when I hit the that API campaign endpoint. All right, so I've launched my campaign. Here it is. It's never sent anything. Now let's go over into Census. The first thing I'm going to do on the Census side is to get my users and their attributes over into Braze. So I'm going to choose my Google Sheet because I'm using that. You could do this from Snowflake, Databricks, Redshift, BigQuery, Postgres, many different data platforms. I'll choose my users sheet, and then we're going to go to Braze. It will be user. I'm going to choose to update or create users. I'll use external ID as the unique identifier and map over the 3 properties that I have, which are just first name, last name, and email. I'll go ahead and run the sync. With the sync completed, it's showing me I successfully created 4 users in Braze. Let's just go take a look at one of them. Here I am, Joe Player 1, API Test Player 1. Cool. All right, back in Census, I'm now going to create a sync to the actual API triggered campaign. I will choose my source again. In this case, I'm going to choose the URL sheet. This is where I have the external ID of the user and then an object which contains the key survey URL and then the value, which is the actual URL. So back in Census, I'll choose my destination. API triggered campaigns are at the top, and I'll choose the one I created. They're append by default. I'll choose my external ID, and then I'll map my text field trigger properties to trigger properties in Braze. Next. Let's go ahead and run it and see if I get some email. With the sync complete, it says I've had 4 successful records to the destination. If I go back over to the user I was looking at, I can check engagement, and I can see in campaigns received, it now says Joe's API triggered campaign a few seconds ago. If I go over to my email, boom, there we go. Oh, and 4 of them. Player 4, player 2, player 1, player 3. So the order got mixed up in transit, but there you go. And so here I have the player 3 link. Player 1 got the player 1 link. Player 2 got the player 2 link. And player 4 got the player 4 link. So there you go. That's how to personalize messages from API triggered campaigns with trigger properties.